Manipulation. Once you learn about the logical fallacies, you'll go crazy. I want you to go as insane as me being able to pick out any logical fallacies in every argument you're in, and then immediately write them into your story, because that's what we do on this channel. So what are logical fallacies? A logical fallacy is an argument that may sound convincing or true, but is actually flawed. Logical fallacies are leaps of logic that leads us to an unsupported conclusion. People may commit a logical fallacy unintentionally due to poor reasoning, or intentionally to manipulate others. So yeah, let's learn how to manipulate others. How to have our characters try to manipulate each other in our stories. Let's use my book as an example, since I've written a lot of arguments and debates in here. By talking about my OCs, I'm sure it'll inspire you to write them in your characters. So let's jump into it. Many different logical fallacies exist, but I'd like to discuss some of the standout favorites of mine. The half-truth fallacy, straw man fallacy, ad hominem, appeal to flattery, personal incredulity, appeal to character, appeal to emotion, appeal to ridicule, and loaded questions. Okay, so that's not a few, but I'll explain what they are and I promise you'll understand. Okay, first up to fight, Gioni and Hippie Girl. The topic, why didn't you tell me about the monsters? So let's read the passage, yeah? I looked everywhere, but okay, Gioni said, her voice soft. Why didn't you tell me about the Tenebris? I did though. No, you didn't. I did. What did you think the nunchucks were for? This right here is what we call a half-truth fallacy. It's a deceptive statement that includes some element of the truth, but is presented in a way that leads to a false conclusion. This statement here is deceptive. The truth is that Hippie Girl did give her the nunchucks in chapter 1, but if you reread that chapter, she did not mention the Tenebris, aka these monsters, anywhere in their conversation. By telling the truth about giving her the nunchucks, it covered up the lie that Hippie Girl never mentioned the Tenebris. Hippie Girl won the argument with a half-truth fallacy. Low-key though, I think they're both in the wrong. Like, Gioni should have known that if someone is giving you a weapon, you're probably gonna be fighting, and Hippie Girl should have just disclosed that she was fighting.
There's a force field? Why didn't you tell me? Well, because I wanted us to fail. Obviously, I didn't know!
Anyways, let's go to the next one. Gioni and Darren, the topic, should you choose a career that makes you the most money? Okay, let's read. An irreversible debt of 40 years. I have to be an agent for that long. When you're 15, you never focus on the fact that it's too late. If I could go back, Darren said, maybe I didn't worry so much about the status or what other people said. I'd be much more content. But you have time to decide what you want to be, what you want to do. Desperateness is never an excuse to be impatient. Anyways, it's too late for me, but it's not the end of the world for you. Then let's trade places, huh? I'd gladly take on 40 years if it meant I could survive, Gioni retorted. She stood up and crossed her arms. The fallacy here is a straw man fallacy. This is a fallacy where someone misrepresents or distorts an opponent's argument to make it easier to attack. I want to emphasize that a straw man fallacy is not the same as a straw man character. A straw man character is a terribly written character, like their whole purpose of being is just to disprove points easily. One personality trait, and it's just being the main character's verbal punching bag to prove a point. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here today is the straw man fallacy. This is more conversational. Gioni is not a straw man character since her viewpoints evolve and develop throughout the story, but in terms of this moment right here, she did commit a straw man fallacy. Darren is essentially saying, don't rush into things like me, take your time to decide what you want to be. And Gioni responds with, so you're saying I should live in poverty and struggle for the rest of my life? In this scene, Gioni basically misrepresents and basically distorts Darren's argument so it's easily dismissible. There's basically no reasonable way to argue, and when he dumps down the statement for her to understand, she stops talking, so, there's that. Strawman arguments are very interesting to write. You just have a character ignore the real argument, and they create a pretend argument to get upset about. Wild shit, but people act this way.
Then let's trade places, huh? I'd gladly take on 40 years if I meant I could survive, Dumbledore said calmly. Why the fuck did I draw the frame like this?
Okay, on to the next one. Gioni and Tracy, the topic, you should be an agent. Let's read. You don't? Then what do you want to do? I'm not sure. You're not sure? What? A measly baker or a lame farmer would have been a better answer. If you don't know, be an agent. I need more time to think about it. What is there to think about? You're a terrible student, you know that? You've always been my least favorite. Unreasonable. Selfish. So this is what we call an ad hominem, attacking the person making an argument rather than addressing the argument itself. So here with Tracy, I think you can see the gradual shift into frustration. The conversation started off normally, but then all the personal attacks started to creep in. You're a terrible student, you're unreasonable, and you're selfish are all ad hominem attacks. When you can't argue the point anymore, you might as well just insult the person to wake them up. And yes, this is the first time Gioni had ever heard any of this. It was sadly effective, because she did start to believe it. Ad hominem is more common than you think. By insulting someone's character, you're trying to undermine their argument.
I just remembered my very favorite ad hominem attack in all of fiction. It comes from my favorite episode of SpongeBob, specifically the Kelp Shake episode. When Plates is all I don't see you on the front lines. Sure, let me do all the work while you just sit back. Like the fat gorilla you are. Why would he call Mr. Krabs a fat gorilla? Anyone who knows me knows that I fucking love this Kelp Shake episode. I even have the little Kelp Shake water container to hold my freaking Stanley and shit. So I don't know, unrelated. Best ad hominem in fiction, calling a crab a fucking fat gorilla.
Okay, so we have Gioni and Tracy again. The same scene actually happens later on, several paragraphs later. Gioni looked to the floor. I've known you since you were a child, and you were so good then, and you're still good now. You're a smart girl with plenty of potential. This is appeal to flattery, a logical fallacy where someone attempts to persuade by using compliments rather than providing valid reasons or evidence. So yeah, after berating Gioni, she later tries to compliment her by saying that she's smart. She's hoping that she'll make the right decision. The right decision is what Tracy wants. Tracy is that dangerous combo of saying very hurtful things that'll make you feel like shit, and then very nice things that'll make you feel good. This character was definitely not hard to write. I feel like I know at least 8 people like this, if not more. Next up, we have Gioni and Brandon, and for the next several examples, it'll be these two. So let's jump into it. The first topic, why are you bleeding? Finally, Brandon's locked eyes looked somewhere else. His expression was hidden. He pushed himself against the bed, readjusting, then he stood up, showing an inch of unease. Okay, he said. Okay. You don't believe me, do you? Gioni said. I don't know how to prove it to you, but that's the truth. Tracy illegally put me in the trials at level 15 and I got hurt. Please stop. Brandon asked. If you don't want to tell me, it's okay, really. Just don't lie about Mayor Tracy like that. She wouldn't hurt anyone. She's not like that. So we have 2 fallacies here, personal incredulity and appeal to character. So let's define the first one. Personal incredulity is when someone dismisses a claim or idea simply because they personally find it difficult to understand or believe. So basically, I can't imagine how this is true, therefore it's false. Brandon is incapable of believing Tracy would ever hurt anyone, considering the fact that Brandon never breaks the rules and he's very responsible. Of course, Tracy is nothing but nice to him, which leads us to our next fallacy, appeal to character, or if you recall, ethos, pathos, and logos from high school. This is essentially ethos. The entire argument hinges on Tracy being a good person. She wouldn't do this because she's not like that. And honestly guys, very terrifying to have your actions excused by others simply because you're good at being a nice person. That shit's my worst nightmare, low-key. And I write my nightmares in my books, guys. Okay, we're on to the next one. Gioni and Brandon. Topic, I'm gonna leave because I'm suffering. I'm not a good fighter, I can't pass the junior agent trials, my stuff often gets stolen, and in case you forgot, I'm damaged and can't be an agent anyway, so I'm going to leave. When Brandon offers some help, Gioni continues, "Wait, listen. There's nothing for me here. I haven't eaten in 2 days, maybe 3. Gioni's eyes darted through the room. She stumbled backwards. "And I don't have a payment for tomorrow, and I don't want a handout. I want to figure it out myself." What we have here is an appeal to emotions. This fallacy is when you persuade someone by invoking certain emotions. In this case, that emotion is sympathy. Brandon doesn't understand what's going on, so Gioni explains everything in a rather sad and frantic tone. It starts off with her embarrassingly explaining her situation, then the panic of it all really starts to set in. Most people would feel sorry for her. It is a sad situation. Other people have the world's smallest violins out, thinking she should grow a pair, but whatever you think, it's clear that Gioni is trying to get Brandon to sympathize with her. Kinda unrelated, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. I was born with glass bones and paper skin. Every morning I break my legs, and every morning I break my arms. At night, I lay awake in agony until my heart attacks put me to sleep. This scene is like the de facto appeal to emotions fallacy. Let's not forget that before this scene, SpongeBob and Patrick came injured as a way to garner sympathy to sell more chocolates. But felt bad because this dude was even more fucked up. This show is so stupid, but it'll always be my number one. Always. Anyways, while Gioni's intentions weren't deliberately manipulative, I'd say that these guys are because they're trying to sell a product. So many people use appeal to emotions in a sincere manner, but that's because empathy is a very natural human trait to the point where it's deeply ingrained into our biology. And because of that, that allows for bad actors to swoop in and manipulate. So always be wary, folks. Okay, we got more Gioni and Brandon. The last one too, the topic, "Let's run away together and tell nobody." Let's read it. He let go. "Please tell me you're joking." "I'm not." "You're serious. You're not thinking. Listen to yourself." Gioni didn't reply. "One bad idea after the next, and I can't get a break stressing about you. When you start talking like that, when you start making that face, there's no changing your mind, and reason goes out the door. How often do you have to get hurt before realizing risky behavior isn't rewarding?" We got 2 fallacies here, appeal to ridicule and a loaded question. Let's define appeal to ridicule. This happens when someone tries to make a claim seem absurd by making fun of it. Instead of trying to explain why running away isn't a good idea, he instead spends his time making fun of it with these statements. Statements like, "Are you serious? You're not thinking. Listen to yourself." By implying that Gioni sounds absurd, it's a tactic to make her stop, and it works. She stops talking, which leads him to continue. How often do you have to get hurt before realizing risky behavior isn't rewarding? That's what we call a loaded question. Basically, it's a complex question that contains a controversial assumption, meaning there is literally no way to answer that without sounding guilty. Gioni's choices here is either admit that she's wrong and side with Brandon, or double down and sound like an adrenaline junkie lunatic. Want to know how she responds? Read my book. Anyways, let me share my final thoughts before we close out. I love to use logical fallacies as a source of conflict in my writing because I feel like it's a bit more believable than having your characters overhear some shit and getting pissed off or mindlessly screaming at each other. Just allow your characters to manipulate each other because that's how humans behave. And I want to clarify this. Manipulation is not always intentional. Unintentional manipulation is very deeply ingrained in our way of thinking. I guarantee you, none of these characters were like, "Ooh, I'm gonna use this 10-step plan to manipulate and persuade them into agreeing with me. My master plan will go into effect soon." No, that is not what's happening. Every single one of these was done unintentionally. If you look at all of these, the common theme is that they genuinely care about their relationships and want to maintain them. Whether it's Hippie Girl's half-lie to get Gioni to calm down or Brandon's ridicule to stop Gioni from doing something dangerous, it all comes from this place of care, even if it's inadvertently manipulative. Even Tracy, I think hers looks more diabolical because she's saying mean things and saying nice things, but I'll tell you now, it is not on purpose. Tracy genuinely loves Gioni, but her methods of showing that kind of tough love, it's harmful. I know this character seems evil, but there's a lack of awareness, a very misguided approach to showing care and love, a very dangerous and toxic approach, actually. We know that because we have the sources to prove it. I don't know if this character will ever change. Chapter 11 coming out soon, y'all. So yeah, write them in. It can make for some interesting complex dynamics within your characters. Source them from real life too, because that's why all these logical fallacies even exist. All of these exist from real people talking and debating with each other. And now that you know about the fallacies, you'll probably end up crazy like me when someone tries to use them against you. It's a real curse I have to suffer with though. And now you have the curse as well. I'm sorry. Let me know if you guys want a part 2. There are a lot more logical fallacies that we can discuss. And of course, comment down below if you have any characters spitting logical fallacies at each other. I need to know. But for now, I think that's it. That's the video. If you're interested, check out my book 2152, The Trifold Article. It's both animated and illustrated, sci-fi and adventure. What? For once, the chapter I mentioned are actually up online? What? Yes, they are. In this video, I spoke about Chapter 5, Chapter 6, Chapter 7, Chapter 8, and Chapter 9. I didn't talk about every fallacy I came across, but if you catch them, I'll be more than happy. That will be linked below as well as the newsletter. I have a Discord for artists and writers that'll also be linked below. Yes, we fixed the fucking link this time. I'm so sorry. Like and subscribe and whatever, that's much appreciated. Have fun while creating today, and I'll see you guys later!